some troublemakers to stand out. Marginalized with voices making us so proud. For identity in the industry, we all shout. So many women empowered making their own.
I am so happy for the guest that we have today. Brenda Gilbert and I actually met on Clubhouse. And I knew that she was going to be a ride or die in our very first Zoom. And she has become an extremely good friend of mine in running WOCU.
Trying to charge her for speaking up. Left behind speeding up. Passing not even enough. Needed no introduction, but she got a theme song.
First of all, thank you all for coming to the very first Women of Color Unite Entertainment Pod. I just want to say, even though I'm the one who said it, Nicci Freeman is the one who did the majority of the work. And as our interim director of events, I'm going to keep her around. I don't know what she's going to do, but I'm going to keep her around. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a backstory. So first of all, I'm Cheryl L. Bedford. I'm the founder of Women of Color Unite. We're the largest nonprofit of women of color in entertainment. I'm also a producer, line producer, and production manager. I got a BFA from NYU and MFA from AFI. Thank you, Joe Biden, for getting rid of my goddamn student loans. Thank you, Joe Biden. And I'll let Nicci Freeman introduce herself, but I am so happy for the guest that we have today. And one of the reasons that I love like these types of platforms, Brenda Gilbert and I actually met on Clubhouse. So Gino Brooks, who had worked for Brenda and been her assistant, used to hold these pods. That is how I met Brenda. And I knew that she was going to be a ride or die in our very first Zoom, where we were both starving and we're like, should we eat? Should? And we both sat there and had lunch. And she has become an extremely good friend of mine in running WOCU and not having like experience running something this large. We have over 6,000 members. Brenda has always been my ear. When in Hollywood during Black Lives Matter and, the pandemic and everybody was scrambling for the BLM money and, we weren't getting the kind of love that my staff should have gotten. Brenda and BRON Studios would tweet out, send out, redo everything that we did. She is such a ride or die. She is now a board member of Women of Color Unite. She is also our EIC executive in charge as we launch WOCU Productions. BRON Studios, if you don't know, have more Oscar nominations than we have finger and toes. Ooh, child, 125 productions. But I'm going to turn it over to Nicci Freeman and let her take it from here. Then we are going to get into it. Take it from there, Ms. Nicci Freeman.
Hi, I'm Nicci Freeman. I'm a producer, line producer, UPM. I'm also the interim director of special events for WOCU while Jasmine is on maternity leave with Cheryl's glam baby. And so I have come in and kind of tried to take some of the reins and make sure that Jasmine doesn't get bothered while she enjoys her new baby that we're all very excited about. That's me. I do want to say I have a list of questions prepared, but I really would like to hear from the audience as well. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get around to them. At the end, we'll have some Q&As as well. Cheryl.
You got it. So Brenda Gilbert is a producer, executive producer, mentor, and entrepreneur and my ride or die. She is the co-founder of BRON Media Corp, a company she had led with her husband, Cheryl L. Gilbert. BRON Media Corp. BRON has produced or executive produced more than 125 productions, and BRON companies have received and have been a part of hundreds of honors, including 38 Academy Award nominations with 6 wins and more than 250 Film Festival Award nominations. Over her 20 plus years in the media space, Brenda has produced or executive produced more than 24 projects, including the animated film The Willoughbys, which premiered on Netflix, the Emmy-nominated Reverend Al Sharpton documentary Loudmouth, and Reggie, a documentary about Reggie Jackson, the 5-time World Series champion and 4-time All-Star star baseball player who challenged the racial divide in baseball during the 70s and 80s, which premiered on Amazon Prime and many others. Some additional info. In addition, Brenda sits on the board of directors of the Banff World Media Festival, Film Independent, Foundation for the Augmentation of African Americans in Film, and of course, WOCU, Women of Color Unite. She was the track chair for mentoring initiatives with women in animation, is an advisor to the Vancouver Film School and LaSalle College, and has volunteered time with Vancouver Community College. Oh, there is more, because she is a badass. Brenda is a proud member of the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences, has received the honors of Variety's 500 recipient twice, and Variety's Women Who Have Made a Global Impact. In 2022, she received the prestigious Trailblazer of Excellence Award at the Oscar Michaud Film Festival. Nikki and I were both there, for breaking through barriers, providing opportunities and access to underrepresented communities, and always striving to reach new levels of success. She also received the Golden Orange Award at the Miami Media and Film Market in 2022 for her ongoing contributions and support of the Miami Media and Film Market, including educational initiatives, as well as for her accomplishments in the film, television, and entertainment industry. I'll say it again. She's a fucking badass. Hey, Brenda Gilbert, how you doing this morning?
Well, I'm great. And you know what? You keep giving me these accolades and compliments and things like that. Let's talk about you, Cheryl. You know, what attracted me to you was your advocacy and no bullshit kind of attitude. There's so much talk, not just in our industry, but in life itself. And you just move forward. You do what you say. You also have the biggest heart possible. And you always, always defer the compliments to other people. But I want to give it up to you. Like, please, let's get a shout out to Cheryl L. Bedford, who put in her own money, started this organization, WOCU, from the ground up and created the JTC list that is over 6,000 members right now from nothing. So we have to give it up to you, give you your flowers, and you are a true gem. And Nikki, I don't want to forget about you too. You're quite the gem as well, working your ass off and doing whatever you can and pushing, no matter what the barriers are, no matter what the struggles are. We got to make sure that we keep those bridges open and create more for access and abilities and opportunities for others.
Yeah, and for those
I will say Cheryl is the most charming person, because I hate staying at parties late. I'm like the Irish goodbye. Like, I go in, I say hi to everybody, and then I like sneak out. And for Cheryl's first WOCU party, I stayed the entire party and then stayed to clean afterwards.
Yes, you did. And Nikki has been with us. Just so you guys know, right now is our 7-year anniversary. So I am so excited to be here. And I see that Christopher Boozy, the owner of this wonderful, wonderful platform, is here. I am so excited to just move everything that we do from Women of Color Unite onto Spotify. Boozy, what you have created is absolutely incredible. I look forward to at some point hosting you out here with all of our friends, with the Ben Watkins and the Brenda Gilberts and everybody else out here, so that they can meet you in person and see how big your heart is. So I just want to give a shout out to Christopher Boozy as we move in to this wonderful pod. So for those who don't know, and they're like taking a look at Brenda's picture, Brenda is actually a Black woman. Both of her parents are from Fiji. So, because some people look at her and they're like, what? Yes. That is why she sits on so many boards and why she advocates for those of us who are the most marginalized, in the way that she has used BRON Studios. BRON has back Surrounded, obviously Loudmouth, Reggie, Birth of a Nation. Those are just a few. Along with, of course, a few others that you've heard of, like The Joker. So, look up. There's 125 productions. I'm sure you guys will have questions about some of your favorite movies that BRON has been a part of. Nicci, why don't you take it from here with all of those wonderful questions?
Brenda, what was your "I've made it" moment? Like the first time you felt like you belonged in the industry, like you were like, yeah, I can do this.
It's interesting you asked that question. I don't think I've ever made it, to be quite candid with you. I think that when and where I felt that we had some recognition in terms of film production and what we were able to do, particularly in the indie space, was The Birth of a Nation, when we had the highest record sale in the history of Sundance. That's broken right now, but this was back in the day. And we realized after getting a standing ovation prior to the film even being screened, I think it was a 12-minute standing ovation before and after, that we had made some impact, and we didn't have to pay to get, our names in the paper or, our projects and our talent recognized. That was one time. The other time within the same year, or in the same year, it was the first time my husband and I had attended the Oscars. And we were executive producers. We had put some money into a film that most of you will know, and that had given Viola her accolades that she well deserves, or more than deserves, and that was Fences. So I said to my husband, I looked over at him. We were very excited to be at the Oscars. It was the first time for both of us attending. I looked at him and said, Viola's going to win. He goes, oh, I hope so. And I said, no, I know so. And when her name was called, I jumped up in the air and was in the audience. Like, I was actually in the auditorium where she was given the award. And not only that, she actually mentioned BRON on that stage, on a global stage. And so I think that still, it was great and wonderful, but I'm the kind of person that always has my head down and always wants to push forward. And what else can I do? And what can I do better? So I don't think I've made it yet, to answer your question.
Speaking of that, how did you get into the industry? Like, what was the job or gig that you had that was super unexpected before you got in the industry, and then you said, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I went to school for business. I have a minor in sociology. I loved the social sciences. And in my last 2 years of finishing my degree, my electives were human resources and organizational behavior. And organizational behavior was the first and only time that I ended up getting an A+ in post-secondary. I was a good student, but not a straight A student, unlike my middle daughter is an honors of distinction child. But what I had done is I always loved film, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I can dabble into acting. And I realized very quickly that I did not like to be in front of the camera. I didn't mind the hard work. I didn't mind the long hours. I did some background work, which my scene was cut. And this was for a movie way back in 1999 called Romeo Must Die. I was able to meet Aaliyah, Jet Li, DMX as well. And it was a great experience, met great people, but I realized, okay, this is not for me. Then was part of a background of another 3-part TV series called Aftershock with Cicely Tyson. And again, my scene got cut, which is totally fine, but realized I don't like this. I'm not made for being in front of the camera. So if you see me in pictures on the red carpet, most of the time I'm not smiling because I don't like all the cameras, the lights, the activity, the craziness of it all. And usually I have to have a glass of wine or two before I walk the carpet. If I'm smiling, I have at least 2 glasses of wine in me. So what I did was I'm like, okay, well, I need to pay the bill. So let's use my post-secondary education in terms of, going into maybe the financial world. So I worked for the BC Securities Commission, which is a regulatory body for stocks and exchange contracts, and worked in many different departments there, between enforcement, communications to legal, and really got a gist of, more of business knowledge and acumen. And then I ended up getting a great opportunity to work for a financial consulting group. Our specialty was mergers and acquisitions. And within less than a year that I was there, I was managing director of one of the companies that we had acquired at age 26. I also had My boss was a man from the Philippines who was only 3 years older than me. And he was a great mentor. He taught me so much. And that's where I actually met my husband, which I didn't know at the time, in the spring of 1997, if you can believe it. So that may give away a little bit of my age. And met my husband there, and he was in the music business. He had his own catalog for music. He also was a music soup on a couple of projects. And fast forward a little bit in terms of how we got back into the film industry is we had BRON Management, which was a holding company for us and essentially just a flow through company to get paid through. And we were raising financing, particularly my husband, he has a knack for that, raising financing for film. And that gave way to a few other things where we actually had to take over a production because our co-producing partner was embezzling from the film. And then that led way to, okay, well, maybe if we can control the process of production, we can help with, helping to get the outcome that we want, whether that's with distribution or just even getting the type of film that we want to see on screen. And so, one thing led to another. It's like, you had to really build up your resume, get to know people, to network, went to all the festivals, really had to work our way up. And my father-in-law always, jokes and says, it took 20 years to be an overnight success. And man, has it been super crazy to get to where we were and what we were able to accomplish in 13 years. We were able to do things. We grew so quickly that we had offices in Vancouver, Canada, in Toronto, in Los Angeles, in New York, in the UK, and New Zealand as well. And with growth, there's growing pains. So that's just sort of the very short version of how we got into the business and got to where we were and where we're at now.
That's a lot.
Well, you
Wow.
want it. I want to be thorough so that everybody understands. I always get told, okay, I want to hear the backstory. So that was a lot, or a little bit of the backstory.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. I just, even though I went through and read your bio and everything, I was like, even I wasn't aware of all of that. So it's really interesting. And you went through a lot just to get to that point.
Hey, Nikki, can I interject real quick?
Sure.
Can we go back to the embezzling part?
Well, that was my next question, though. Like, have you ever had a total disaster moment on a project that you can laugh about now, but that might actually not even be it?
Yeah, I don't know if there was any. Looking back, I'm not quite sure I'm laughing about anything. There were always definitely lessons to be learned, right? And at the time when you're in it, as you all know, when you go through something stressful, you got to sit with your emotion, your grief, your frustration, your anxiety, your nervousness, and it does take a lot out of you. And it was one of these, WTF, what the fuck moments where you're just like, how could you do this? How could you embezzle from the film? There's countless people, the crew, the talent, everybody counting on you. Why would you do something like that? And for us, what I didn't mention is for us to take over that production, so my husband and I did not take the usual route to becoming producers or executive producers or being in film. Is we had to learn everything on the fly, and including on that production, going, okay, what does this person do? What does this person do? Let's think about this. What's the the cash flow, the cost reports, etc. Like trying to learn all of these things. And so let's just say it made for a very interesting, very, very stressful year. And that led to us incorporating BRON Studios initially. It wasn't BRON Media Corp. And we incorporated that company in September of 2009. And I had not even a 1-month-old on my hip and 2 other children. So when you say over there, I don't know if I can laugh about it. Well, maybe I'm laughing right now in a very sarcastic way. The reality was like, I just don't want to go through that again. But what did I learn from it, and how was I able to move forward from it?
Oh, wow. Geez. Then based on that, what's a piece of advice that you ignored at first, but then later realized was 100% true?
I'll be honest to you. I've heard more criticism than been given good advice, and I didn't have any mentors. I had, a Cicely Tyson, a Diane Carroll, a Harry Belafonte, a Sidney Poitier, and many others that I looked up to. But there wasn't anybody that looked like me that was trying to do what I was doing. And then to top it off, I'm running a company with a man, and it's a white man. So a lot of times people were very critical or would ignore me in the room after the initial sort of, pleasantries and greetings. And so I had to actually carve out my own path and think about, how can I move forward? What can I do? And the thing that I really resonate with is rejection is redirection, right? Even with the woman that was embezzling from the project, is what can we do right now? How can we get this done? How can we not let other people down, and make sure that we, really try to complete what we had intended on doing? And so that's really resonated with me, is not to take things personally. This is not personal. This is about business and what we're trying to do here. And, in hindsight, it gave us the stepping stone to do what we were doing, and also to have some, friendships established from that, and colleagues who still want to work with us as well.
Brenda, I'm going to jump in here. How important, and I know this question, but let's talk about how important is it for you to tell our stories, right? Like we look at what BRON has done, right? So yes, you have the Joker, but you also have like Surrounded, which was Michael K. Williams' last film, which we're going to show the trailer for it in a moment. But we look at your body of work of what BRON has done, like Birth of a Nation, Surrounded, Loudmouth, Reggie. How important is it to you personally to tell our stories?
Growing up, there wasn't a lot of stories that were being told that really portrayed or exemplified marginalized groups as positive people. And, I grew up in a time where I was watching Good Times, The Jeffersons, What's Happening, 227. And I want to make sure that we have good role models out there, but also the on-screen representation was very, very important to me, because a lot of times people of color, in particular, Black and brown people, are portrayed in very minimalistic or minimal roles, or very negative roles, as maids or drug dealers or deadbeat dads. It is so important, because I feel that I have an obligation, I have a duty to show particularly our young people that if they can see it, they can be it. And that was really important to me. And also, these stories that are being banned and censored legally are not being told. There's whole educational curriculums that can be put together with some of the stories that people don't know, that look like me, you, and everybody else in between. And so it's just always been very important for me to push forward, not just with Birth of a Nation. Surrounded was very important because it was with Letitia Wright, who is a Black woman in the lead, and she's such a badass in that movie. And you have Michael K. Williams, who yeah, he was just unlike anybody else. And as some of you may know his history, it was even important for us to have him on screen, and he was a very, very dear friend. Have him on the screen and portrayed in a way that we would take any feedback that he had to give. So how important it is, it's really important. I mentioned young people, but for all of us to see representation, to get educated, to gain knowledge, to understand history in the accurate way, right? Making sure we do the research that requires us to have that accuracy behind the screens, in front of the screens, and then having those individuals that specialize, that are trained, that are educated with that knowledge that is put into the films. It's not done by somebody who doesn't understand that experience. They have to be indigenous to those communities, to those people, to those experiences, to those stories. So that's why I think it's important.
It's not just important. The fact that you, the co-founder of BRON Studios, that you feel this way, right? And having those people in power be able to tell our stories, right? And like I said, when we were doing Start with 8, our mentorship program, and everything else, and all the advocacy work that we have done, and to have BRON Studios tweet that out, to have BRON Studios stand behind us, is like I can't ever thank you enough. I can't ever thank you enough. And there were times, just so people also understand, there were times, because Brenda did mention how there was money I put out of my pocket, when I would wake up and there would be like $2,000 sitting, like just transferred over to us from Brenda's own pocket, right? So it's not just standing with us, it's standing beside us and putting your talent, your love, for all of us who are marginalized. And I just also want to say a shout out to Carlos, who's on the stage with us, and made him a co-host because in Carlos's other job, he is actually a film critic. So Carlos, feel free to also jump in at any point. But right now I am going, Boozy, I hope I do this right. I'm going to put in the trailer. It's from YouTube. From Surrounded, y'all, Nicci, Be Trusty gave me a Nicci, showed us how to do this. So everybody, let's see, let's hold tight. Let's see, enter. Let's see if I can do this. All right, here we go.
We were free, but we had no place to be free. Lord, help me reach my piece of the promised land. Protect me on this journey.
Marauders.
Join us. We're all equals here.
Nobody make sudden move.
Get on down.
Hurry up.
Drop the rifle,
I got him.
This is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna get the sheriff and bring him here. I'm saying guard.
This beanpole guard him? That's Tommy Walsh.
Here we are. You and me. Coyote and the horse. Those white folk ain't coming back. Just because they don't want to look at you don't mean I can't see. You'll always be a slave to the white man.
What'd you call me?
I said you'll always be a slave.
Have you been on this side? Keep your mouth shut.
They rather hang me for the color of my skin than to hang you for what you did. You ain't never gonna hang white boy.
I had to learn as a black woman living in this damn white world that I gotta work 3 times as hard to get 1/5 of what I deserve. After the war, I made a promise that I'll fight for those that can't fight for themselves.
It looks like we believe in the same thing.
An eye for an eye.
Just go about it different ways.
Let's go about it together.
My body's
I didn't get a piece of my promised land. Didn't get the rivers flowing with milk and honey.
You have to take what you deserve.
You know, there's money buried out here.
I think you best unchain me now.
Follow you or die.
Yeah.
Baby girl, you in dangerous water.
You can be a hero. The glory of it. Tommy Walsh and the Colored Girl.
What's my name? Small Washington.
God damn. That's not a headline you heard before.
Woo, child. Whew.
Whoopty.
And I've seen it before, and every time it literally takes my breath away. First of all, I am a huge fan of Westerns. Like anybody else grow up watching all those Westerns sitting on your grandparents' lap, The Rifleman, all that kind of stuff. So I'm a huge fan of Westerns, but to see not only a Black woman, but a dark-skinned Black woman as a badass like that. And guys, it's a 2023 movie. It is already available. Y'all can go see it. Brenda, where is it streaming?
It should be on Amazon.
Yeah. I think we may actually have to host a pod after we see this movie. Nikki, you go ahead because I'm speechless.
Well, I mean, going into that and talking about storytelling, were there TV shows or movies that changed the way you thought about storytelling and the projects that you wanted to make?
Yeah, sure. There's definitely, and also what didn't I want to see? Right. So
Exactly.
You can learn either way. We're not going to mention the movies and shows that I didn't want to see or I didn't need to see. But
you can text them to me. I'll say it.
No. I think that the Wire was a show that, even though it was, to do with gangs and drugs and things like that, cinematically, it was interesting to see that type of representation, and the cinematography and the performances were so incredible. When I watched Scandal with Kerry Washington, I was like, okay, this is a Black woman who's badass boss that's calling all the shots, and I want to, make sure that I have at least one of her bags and her trench coats, right? One of her trench coats. Also, Viola Davis, How to Get Away with Murder. I was just like, how clever and great is she that she can do all these things and just have this power and influence over people, and using the educational element of a classroom with her students to really say and do things in a way like never before. And it was also the representation was very, very important to me. And so, anything that we tried to do, and as you know, sometimes creatives can be a little difficult, because they don't always understand the budgetary constraints. Trying to work with them hand in hand. We always prided ourselves working with the directors, and that's why a lot of individuals didn't want to work with the studios, and not to say that there's pros to working with the studios. We had Michael Ellenberg. We actually invested in his company a few years ago called Media Res, and he was tired of being at HBO. He was responsible for not the morning, what, I can't remember the shows right now for whatever reason, just because I'm a little tired, but he came out of the gates running and had the morning show, which is obviously a hit and won lots of awards, lots of Emmys. We also put in a significant money into Little Lamb, which came out with Euphoria, and nobody wanted to do Sam Levinson's movie Assassination Nation. Nobody believed in him, but we saw how clever he could be as a writer, and also he could tell these really interesting, thought-provoking, non-cookie cutter types of movies and shows. So yeah, definitely, those shows. There's definitely other things like movies that really changed the world for me, as late teenager or in my early 20s, and that was Boys in the Hood, Higher Learning, Hustle and Flow later on in life. John Singleton is one of my icons. I got to meet him a couple of years before he passed away, and he just was so nice and so kind. I was introduced to him through our former chief marketing officer, Cassandra Butcher, who worked on almost all his movies with him. And he just was this vibrant, even though he was ill, he was clearly ill even when I met him. He was just such a vibrant, beautiful soul who just said that, he has so much to give. And we were talking about working on a project together. So I'm saddened for the fact that I wasn't able to work with him on a project. And also sad that we also lost Michael K. Williams, like I mentioned before, who is really genuine. If you were in the room with him and there was 20 other people and he was talking to you, you felt like you were the only person there, because he would look you in the eyes, make sure that he was engaged, he was present, he wasn't looking around like what happens in Hollywood, where people look, through the door to see who's coming in and who's wearing what and who's with who. he was just really genuine. He was very authentic, and everything he said was very meaningful, and he was very, very spiritual. So those are two icons that I worked with Michael K. Williams on another movie called Red Sea Diving Resort. We filmed in South Africa, but never got to work with John Singleton. So those are two icons, and those are a few of my shows that really shaped, what I was looking for in terms of portrayal, but also in terms of talent and cinematography and sets and authenticity.
Yeah, John's great. He's I'm a member of the DGA, and he was on the African American Steering Committee board, and so got to spend time just listening to him talk. And then while I was the special events director there, we put together his award ceremony for like lifetime achievements at the DGA. Just a really, really nice man.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. I've also met John, and I took some of my students from New York Film Academy to, I think it was the one, Nikki, where he got the Lifetime Achievement Award at the DGA from the African American Steering Committee, and they all wanted pictures with him, and he was just so gracious. And I'd met John several times over the years, and he was just so incredibly, incredibly gracious. What is the advice that you have for people want to, especially marginalized people who want to be executives, right? As opposed to because I came up the independent film way. Nikki came out of really commercials, music videos. What advice would you give for those who want to come up the executive way?
I think first and foremost, you have to look in the mirror, right? Your self-worth is not a group decision. And, believing in yourself, if you want to be an executive part of a particular organization, research the hell out of that organization. So when I would get pitched projects, I would see how much people knew about me, knew about maybe my husband, maybe about some of the other people in the leadership group or other members of our team, and also the content that we had out there. Like, why do you want to be a chief marketing officer? And what does that entail? Does that entail some formal education? Does that entail a whole bunch of experience? What type of experience? Is that film and TV, or is it just film? If you want to go in the animation realm, how much experience do you have there? How much knowledge do you have there? Those types of things, and never give up. Like, that's the thing, is I just kept working and putting my head down, and I've been rejected more times than you can believe. I've fallen down so many times that I just have to just keep pushing forward. And I know it sounds really easy. It did not. I've been in the industry for almost 3 decades, so 30 years. And it was not easy pushing and finding people like a Cheryl Bedford or a Nicci Freeman and many others out here that really are supportive of us. So it's also a matter of networking, getting out there, finding like-minded people who are genuine, that want to help, can give advice, and in turn you can give them advice as well, and establish some sort of relationship. Go find out find out the organizations that really support us, whether that's in Los Angeles, New York, wherever you reside, and then go to these events. Make yourself known in a room, right? And I don't mean that you have to be overt and say, look at me, but work the room, talk to people. I know Nikki doesn't like doing that as much as Cheryl does, but funny enough is I'm actually quite an introvert, but in a room I can talk to everybody. And so that's what I think is, getting out there, doing the research, networking, and understanding, just the ins and outs of the industry. Is this something for me? Because it is tough. Some days you're crying, some days you're angry, some days you want to throw things. And of course, yes, sit with those emotions and think, like I said earlier, how can I move forward? Do I want to move forward? And that's the key. So that's my advice to individuals, is get yourself out there and do the research and network.
So, Brenda, I got to ask you, what made you go on Clubhouse, and what made you come to this pod, right? What makes you, because honestly, you could sit up in an ivory tower with all of your accomplishments and not and what a lot of people in Hollywood do, right? Like they sit up in their ivory tower as opposed to actually, coming down and talking to people. And what made you want to do this clubhouse, any of those types of things?
I don't see myself as being better than anybody else. I can always do better. And when I think about even the people that I employed or a production, is everybody contributes in a meaningful way, whether they're an assistant coordinator, director, DP, whatever, whoever they may be. And I'm always looking and learning. And it was also, the height of COVID where people were just looking for a sense of community, camaraderie, advice, information. And I was told about a clubhouse from a friend. And at that time, you had to nominate people to get in or invite people to get in, if you recall. And I think, in the last couple of years, anybody can, sign in and get on that into that platform. And Gino Brooks, as you'd mentioned, Cheryl, before, worked with us, and we always kept in touch. And so just a little background on Gino Brooks is, when I met him and talked to him, he was specifically going to be hired to be my husband's assistant. And usually with hires that I'm going to be interacting with quite a bit, I'd like to have a conversation and get to know them, what their intention is, because BRON was much more than just a company. And I didn't want it to become a bureaucracy. How is this person coming in going to contribute positively to the culture that I work so hard to create and to evolve and to maintain? And when I met Gino and talked to him over the phone, he talked about, some of his charity work that he was doing. And that really appealed to me. And he was also much more than just an assistant. He could write, he could direct, he could do all these different things. And I was really amazed by him. So he had hosted this conversation on Clubhouse on Saturday mornings. And it was about talking about our highs and lows, but really talking about our wins, because he wanted to put out some positivity out there, especially at a time where we were nervous and anxious and we didn't know what was happening, with the pandemic and how long it would be going on for. So we were all confined in our homes. So he wanted to give some, positive feelings and really for people to feel good about themselves, no matter what that was. And it didn't have to do with work. It could do with, I'm now talking to my mom, who I had been talking to for a little while. And that's where Cheryl and I had met. And I was expressing my frustration about nobody really doing anything, giving lip service, how and as a woman of color, just hitting walls sometimes. And Cheryl's like, oh, let's have a conversation. And then a deep friendship ensued after that. But yeah, that's why I went on Clubhouse, is just finding like-minded people. I don't care what you do, as long as you have good intentions, you're not discriminatory, you're not disingenuous, because that will show up after a while. Some people can give a good presentation, but a chameleon can show his true colors after any time. Like it will come up. And so I don't think that, and I think that's another thing for individuals who want to be in a leadership role, is listening to people, and good ideas come from anywhere and everywhere, and different perspectives give us so much depth, whether that's in storytelling, whether that's in running an organization, whether that's even in life lessons, right? So Clubhouse was that for me at a time where I was in my house listening to different things, running a company. I was averaging 13 Zoom calls a day, and that didn't include phone calls, and still made time to listen to really interesting conversations and really bonding with individuals in this app who I'd never met before, because I knew the intentionality was true and it was pure, and I knew, and I was not wrong about Cheryl and a few others as well, who I maintain a deep and loving relationship with.
And what brings you to good old Spottable and our pod?
For Christopher Boozy, it really was because of Cheryl. Cheryl told me, just after being on so many different platforms and being attacked, is that we have the opportunity to really align ourselves and to hold arms with each other for things that are very, very important. It's like I was trying to find with Clubhouse and maybe other um, platforms, is it's a sense of community. And even just looking here, everybody is responding so positively to what we're saying. I'm not always right. I know that I'm not perfect. Don't tell my husband, Cheryl, that I said that out loud. I tell him I'm perfect and I always know better. But yeah, no, it's Spottable is just a place. I'm new to it, but I just find that I can feel relaxed. I'm, not feeling nervous about saying things. I know that people are going to be supportive. They're going to want to listen to what I have to say, but also not being afraid to be able to comment on what me and others are saying as well. And it's very, very informative for me as well. And the accuracy of information is important too.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're all unspotable, because of the accuracy of the information, right? Like I'm not. Nikki and I have no intentions of bringing people to the pod, to Spottable, who aren't community based, right? In 2 weeks, we have 3 actors who are coming, 3 Black men, and again, I think especially after the election, that it is more important than ever to create that community. And again, Boozy, thank you so much for doing this and having a place where, for me, to be perfectly honest, I feel comfortable bringing the people that we know in Hollywood to a space that is actually going to be, as safe as you can get on the internet. So again, thank you. Christopher Boozy. Moving on, what advice would you give to screenwriters as far as like getting their material, right? Because, of course it's agents and managers and we know all of that. But for those who may not have the ins in Hollywood, how would you suggest them getting their scripts in front of people?
It's interesting. So just in terms of, when I have people pitch to me, writers, directors, actors, talent, and things like that, is that when you're writing something, think about who is your target audience and why would somebody be compelled to want to see what you're writing about? Is it something that can resonate emotionally more so to Americans or to North Americans, or is it much more global? Is there global resonance? Think about also from a budgetary standpoint, is if you want all these fancy things and sets to be built, there are costs that are associated with that. Understand that if you want certain caliber of talent, there's a price attached to them, and that also contributes to the budget. So when you're writing, look at things very holistic. Also make sure that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. How many times have you guys watched something and you're like, this ending does not make any sense? What is going on over here? And that's happened to me time and time again, where I loved 2/3 of the movie and then the last third, it was lost. The other thing is, if you have musical elements to it and you envision that in your writing, is make sure that the music that you're envisioning complements what you're trying to do. I've watched many shows, I've watched films that are actually contradictory to the storyline, and it's actually distracting to me. It takes me away from the story. It takes me away from the characters. It takes me away from any type of emotion that I was feeling. And so, there's just so many things to really think about as a writer, and pitching. There's so many people that you pitch to. They've heard these stories time and time again. What makes this special? What makes this unique? What makes this watchable? And why should a studio, or why should a private investor or an indie filmmaker want to collaborate with you? I hope that answers the question, Cheryl.
Oh yeah, no, that absolutely answers the question. Nikki, what else you got today?
Well, I kind of want to go back to where we were talking about authenticity and truth. And there's a large disconnect of what people think that we do and what we actually do. So what is the one thing that people assume about your job that's totally wrong?
That it's easy and glamorous. That I'm walking red carpets, I'm going to parties all day, and having a great old time and drinking cocktails. I think it's a real misconception because of what's been portrayed in media, right? You see the highlight reels, you don't see the people's real backstage moments. Like I was telling you, just a small example was, people don't realize that the backstage prior to getting onto the red carpet, even a few feet away from the cameras, is there's a frenzy of activity. There's so many people, there's press, there's cameras all over the place. There's people running around trying to cue you in, and then some people go when they're not supposed to. But also from the fact that a script does not go to the screen in a matter of months. There's development, there's the prep work, then you get into production and then post, and you have to, if you're working with a studio, they have, things that they need to have that movie delivered, their deliverables. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of people. And it's so difficult. And the hours, oh my God, Cheryl, Nikki, how many hours do we work in a day on a film or multiple projects? We were putting out, prior to the pandemic, or part of 13, 14 movies a year. And we were a small studio. We were not a large studio. We had in-house business affairs, legal, post-production, and finance departments. Just because of the volume of work that we had, we did have to, use outside lawyers as well on a per project basis. But can you imagine managing all of that, all those pieces? And we had great staff, definitely very talented, but just managing that. And let me tell you, the most difficult job, if you want to be in a leadership role, is the emotional management. It's not getting the job done, the job description. It's getting people to get along with each other, to communicate with each other. And these are grown ass people. So you're just going, oh my God. Taking a step back, I won't tell you the two people, but I was actually at the gym at 8:30 in the morning one day. This is a couple of years ago. And I had one person who was the head of one department and another person, the head of another department, telling me that both of that, like of each other, that they are being insensitive of each other. These are veterans of the industry. And I was just like, oh my God, you're interrupting me this morning at 8:30, trying to finish up my workout and then take my, kids to school, or two kids to school. But yeah, so it's crazy. So it's not glamorous. It's fun, absolutely fun. And it's not easy, and it's not a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, I just had a moment at Starbucks the other day, and I still kind of feel bad, but I laughed in a total stranger's face because he was like, he's talking to his friend who's in line, and they're in line in front of me, and he was like, yeah, I'm giving up acting to focus on producing so that he could spend more time with his family. And I laughed in his face because you have time to have a family. Producing was not an easy job, and I was like, you've gotten a producer credit and haven't actually produced, because I don't know a producer that isn't working 14, 15, 16 hours a day.
Very true.
Oh, Chrissy has a good question. How do you manage your work-home balance when you're doing all these long hours?
I unfortunately wouldn't sleep, which was not a good thing. So the only way I think I'm a hypocrite is that I give good advice and don't always take my own advice. And when I was doing multiple jobs, including head of HR when we first started the company, up to almost 50 employees, I would ask the employees what they would have as their sort of means of alleviating stress: meditation, exercising, reading a book, going out for dinner, whatever it was. So I have not been the best in terms of balancing or having that work-life balance. Now, having said that, I always tried to do some form of exercise, and I really love to exercise, whether that's going for a walk, going to the gym. I live in Vancouver, Canada. My house backs into a forest, so I have lots of trees and also a lot of trails near me. So, and I also have dogs. So those are the things that really, like, just being one with nature, going out, having that little reprieve, getting some fresh air. Our air is very, very good here in Vancouver, as opposed to other parts of Canada, but also especially in at Los Angeles or New York. And and then also just trying to eat healthier is another way of doing things. I've tried to meditate as well. And just a little advice for all of you who have a hard time meditating. A former colleague of mine, who's also a friend, she told me to go on the Plum Village app. It's free. You can download it. And there is some self meditations that you do, or guided meditations that you can do. There's short ones. So there's anywhere from like 6 minutes, there could be 45 minutes. And it really keeps you grounded and focused, and really being able to just really take care of yourself. So those are some of the things I'm trying to do better. Health wise, it hasn't been so great a year ago. So trying to make sure that I, again, take my own advice and exercise and also get sleep. Like, please, it's so important. I know we do 16-hour days and whatever else. Take a nap whenever you can. I know sometimes people laugh at that. Try to get 7-8 hours of sleep whenever you can. If you know that you're gonna be on a big shoot or not going to be able to sleep, try to prepare your body physically for that. And then in between, wherever you can get a break, just try to get a reprieve. Put on music that is very self-soothing, those types of things. So that's my advice and how I try to do things now.
I love you and Cheryl go and work out and everything. I just want a room where I can scream in or throw plates. Moving on.
Real
Yes.
quick, Nikki, would some of our regulars from the morning commute, from the hallway, let me know if you want to join us on stage from, Chrissy and obviously Boozy, and there's Rashida and Woke and Susan, Joe. Let us know if you would like to join us on stage and ask Brenda directly. When else are you going to get a chance to ask an 8-time Oscar winner some questions? So let me know if you want to come on to stage while we continue to talk to Brenda. I swear she doesn't bite. She is one of the nicest people. Any questions that you have, any advice that you need, if you are interested in the entertainment industry, please feel free to come on up. Hey, Boozy.
Thank you guys for being here. And Brenda, thank you for being here, Nicci Freeman. I do have a question for you. And your story is so amazing, and sitting here just listening to this, but your thoughts on AI and how it's going to affect the industry. I know how Cheryl feels about it, but I would love to hear how you feel about it.
Sure. It's a question that I sometimes get asked so this is the way that I look at things. I take a step back and look at the pros and cons. And I think about it in a way that if this particular type of technology is inevitable, how can we use it as a tool without compromising people's authenticity and likeness and things like that? And like, think about way back when the cell phone was a thing and people were like, I don't want to use that. I don't want to have that thing in my ear. I don't want people to hear what I'm saying here. I'm okay with a landline. Or think about the computer, or just even think about the fact that you can Google something. We're all using these things. So how can we use AI where we can have efficiencies, whether that's on the front end of a production or the back end? Can we save some money in terms of visual effects, which is so costly, it's so expensive, and bring down our budgets and make things more affordable, especially if we want to execute on a filmmaker's vision and story? So I don't necessarily think things as a negative until it proves me that way, or if there's enough evidence to say that, okay, this is bad. Because I know that Hollywood is kind of divided on this. But if you look at A24, they hired somebody that's specifically from the tech world. They're doing that for a reason, because they know that AI and other technologies are coming our way. So how can we use it as an asset, as opposed to something negative that can really hinder any type of progress? Does that answer your question?
It does. I do have a follow-up really quickly, just one follow-up. So have you had any projects yet that uses the technology? If not, do you foresee in the near future any projects, even just in a small, small capacity or whatever the case may be, maybe to, I don't know, enhance something or whatever? Do you think a film that you're going to be part of has already used it or will be using it in the future, near future?
Absolutely. I've teamed up with a friend and colleague of mine, David Steenhook, who has a company, Mediator Studios, and he is much more savvy with respect to tech and merging the worlds of entertainment, filmmaking with tech. And he's been teaching me a lot in terms of some of the efficiencies, but also thinking of AI in an interesting way. One of the things that we as producers, filmmakers, and some people don't think about is the marketing of a film. It's usually an afterthought as opposed to forethought. And so thinking about ways that we can market the film using AI that's not going to cost us a lot of money. So the reality is, and this happens more often than not, unfortunately, just because it just happened to us, while we had BRON, that when we sold a movie, say, to a major studio, we were still responsible for a lot of the marketing costs. And so when I think about it from that perspective, is what can we do to make, to drive down the cost of marketing? It's very expensive to have billboards and things like that, but even to fly talent to and to different markets and festivals, there's a way to incorporate AI so that you don't necessarily have to be at every single thing physically, but you can create something in terms of your marketing campaign using the AI. And thank you again for creating such a wonderful platform.
I can also, we use it. We've started using it, or at least some of our directors have, in pre-production, because I'm not sure if a lot of people aren't aware that for some of our projects, especially in marketing and commercials, we have to do bids, and you have to do a whole lot of work before you even start to get paid. And a lot of that work, if you don't win the bid, you've just done for free in essence, and there's nothing to be made of it. So before we did like enlist artists to create some of these pitch decks that we did. But if you were a smaller production company, you were losing money hand over fist doing those a lot. And so a lot of smaller production companies are now utilizing AI to create their pitch decks or their bid decks or, their pre-production books to submit to the studios to win these bids. We actually just used one for Disney where our director worked for 15 months on this bid and this deck. And before we even were awarded the job. And so had he not been awarded the job, it would have just been 15 months of work that he didn't get paid for.
Yeah. And with that, I got to follow up, Brenda. Would you suggest these days that anybody that we start hiring within production companies, IT techs and people who know AI? I mean, I think it's reasonable to say we should, but how about that? What is also the marketing cost? Let's get into the minutia of stuff. How much was the marketing cost for BRON on some of these projects so that people understand how important AI will be for us in the entertainment industry?
It was huge. It was millions of dollars per project. Even if we had two slate deals with MGM, and we had one when it was just MGM, and one with Warner Brothers when it was just Warner Brothers. And we had for some of the films, we actually had to we were responsible for a lot of the marketing. And that was including, the festivals, all the marketing around the festivals and, the step and repeats and things like that. That can all be created by AI. To Nikki's point, the decks and just making things look pretty. The one thing I did forget is that also in previs, so, storyboards and things like that can be done in AI, and also script breakdowns and script locations can also be done in AI, because I know a few people that have been, I haven't personally worked with AI in any capacity yet. I'm still in the learning phase. I'm not necessarily totally tech savvy. But yeah, just to answer your question, Cheryl, getting back to your question, it was like millions of dollars per project. And you can imagine, and sometimes we'd share the cost with studios, and sometimes, especially if we took a lead producer role, that was on us, to put down, the millions of dollars that it cost for marketing. And again, just to clarify, that was anywhere from social media, concept art, that was film festivals, it was film markets, it was on air marketing, it was, the press junkets, putting people up when they were traveling, talent, putting them up, flying them to places, and there's a whole roster of costs that come with all of that. So it was very, very expensive.
Well, I did have a quick question for Nicci, because she said it took 15 months. So now employing AI, how much time would you estimate? We look, we know cost will be look, cost is a significant factor. I don't care what the budget looks like. If you can bring things down by a few million or whatever, that's always awesome. But in terms of time, 15 months, what does it look like if you're using the AI? How much time is reduced from that?
Well, for this particular project that we just did called Shuffle of Love, it's a Disney Descendants short film musical. And he actually utilized AI, but what he did was he did all the previs that he wanted, built the sets in AI, that obviously got rebuilt again by the production designer when she could say like he's like, this is my vision, and she's like, this is what we can accomplish within that vision, because AI is quite a bit fantastical on a lot of things that you can't really create physically on set. But he wrote the script and, just went back and forth with the studio. They wanted this change. They wanted this longer. They wanted this shorter. I actually worked on it for 4.5 months, revising the budget. Again, still not on payroll yet, just trying to get the job. And so honestly, if I could get AI to do my bookkeeping, then I wouldn't have a job. But no, I'm kidding. But if we could, utilizing AI for some of these things does cut out. Like if he had to use a storyboard artist for the entire time and making all of these changes, we're going into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, once all of that was done and we got the job, we still did employ a storyboard artist to build like the whole project for us, even though we had it in AI. I've also seen people doing their previs, like the full movie in a movie version of AI, which, obviously it's not where it would need to be. I've seen a couple of movies done in AI. The mouths don't work. The eyes look weird. People have 6 and 7 fingers. It's not, we're not replacing actors or the crew at this point with AI, but just having like the director's entire vision laid out where you can hand it to the crew and everybody knows what we're looking at, it makes things run much more seamless. It tightens up, day to day. So it does help. It's just a matter of utilizing it to make things run smoother rather than replacing people and situations.
And for those who don't know, when Nicci says previs, what she's talking about is pre-visualization. We just shorten it to previs, right? And so we have to lay out, especially with the Disney, right? Disney is all about the looks. And Nikki had mentioned in B Trusty's pod, and hey, B Trusty, how on her first call, she had over 120 people because it was marketing, it was, production, it was so many departments for Disney, and it's really, really about the look. So those pre-visualizations are extremely important for everybody because there's so many people, so many departments that everybody is on the same page. And again, if we had to get somebody like back in the day when you had to get these storyboard artists to do it, and it's funny because I'm saying back in the day, but we're really only talking about a couple of years ago, it would have put the production company doing the bid, they would have had to have paid for all of that. So it would have actually put them in debt to get the job. And now we don't have to do that anymore. I just wanted to explain what pre-visualization is. But Boosie, it looks like you're going to have a job in entertainment because of AI, right? Like, we're all going to have to. Boosie, you gonna come work for us? Is that what we're talking about now?
No, ma'am. No. I have done. Obviously, I've shared some stuff with the pod and have tinkered and played around with AI video because I do think it's awesome. I do, and I agree with Nikki that it is not there yet. It will be there at some point, but you're not going to really see a movie right now fully AI, but at some point. But I do understand how it can be utilized in a way to just make the production flow a hell of a lot, hell of a lot more easier, I guess, and more efficient. So I think ultimately it's going to help Hollywood make better movies. I do, especially when it comes to like visual effects, because as Brenda pointed out, it's quite expensive, right? The special effects are quite expensive. So if you can get visual effects that are on the level of what we currently see, and you do it for far cheaper and far faster and quicker, I should say, and at the same time be able to tweak things and do it on the cheap, I think it's going to be great for Hollywood.
Yeah, I actually agree. And I also said in the pods when we've talked about this previously, that it'll actually help people to up their game, right? It's like competing against anything. You have to up your game if you're going to be competing against AI. So, but I really find it interesting I hadn't even thought about it within the marketing budget, because marketing budgets are millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I don't think people realize that once the movie is made, that your marketing budget for a movie can be almost as expensive as your movie. It can be $5 million, $10 million, up to $20 million.
Even more. Marvel films, like when you see like the Avengers was made for $300 million, the movie was not made for $300 million. Their budget was $150 million. And then so the marketing was another $150 million. A lot of the times it is not the cost of the movie that you are seeing when you see this is how much this movie cost.
Brenda, I have a question for you. Who are some of your favorite directors that you have worked with? Notice I said some of, so that you don't have to actually pick one.
Anthony Mandler, who directed Surrounded for us and a movie called Monster that's on Netflix. He was one of the few directors who pitched us the palettes, the story, the schemes, characters, everything in a way that I've never seen before. Our production office was filled. So he actually walked us methodically through the office, looking at each and every wall. And he had genres, he had music, he had everything laid out in there. So for those of you who don't know, Anthony Mandler, his background was in, or still is, I guess, because he still takes photographs, is in photography and also music videos. So he's worked with the best of the best. He's good friends with David Beckham, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Rihanna, Taylor Swift. you name it, he's worked with them. He was just, I guess not just, but in Las Vegas with Lenny Kravitz. So when you look at Monster and you also look at Surrounded, each frame is a photograph. And he was just very nitpicky about making sure that everything was perfect with lighting and with positioning, etc. He was definitely one of my favorites and a lot of fun to work with. Mark Abraham, we did a movie with him called I Saw the Light. And that's with Tom Hiddleston and Lizzie Olsen. And same thing with him. He's just very, very collaborative as a director. And a lot of times, if I wasn't the lead producer, some people just wouldn't, talk to me as much, or, would kind of be not necessarily dismissive. And Mark was not. I'm just like, okay, well, why did you cast this person? Why did you do this? And so his attention to detail was so great. And a lot of what he gauged in terms of having people on a project was on their personal characteristics, right? And their attributes, and how well would they get along with other individuals? Was there any arrogance or, ego about them? So he was also a lot of fun. I didn't get to be on the set of Queen and Slim, which I was hoping to be on with Melina Matsoukas. So I was a little bit sad on that. Nate Parker is another person that's a great director as well, and one of my favorites. Same thing, methodical, thoughtful, thinking about every single scene, every single character, every single prop. So yeah, those are the few that definitely are on the top of my list.
See, I didn't make you choose just one.
You're right, you didn't. And I can't choose one. I mean, there's so many people that we worked with that were so great and had a lot of fun with as well. So it is difficult to choose for sure.
Is there anyone that you would love to work with that you have?
Well, definitely, like John Singleton is somebody that I wish that I could have really, really, really worked with. I think that I would love to work with Ashonda Rhimes as well, and just understanding her process, because everybody has their own process. Gosh, there's a lot of people, but I'll leave it to those two for now.
Hey, Jim, welcome to the stage. Go ahead, Carlos. You haven't talked at all.
I've been trying to squeeze in, but it's like, no, this is going so well. So, hello, Brenda. Nice to meet you. I have a question about, so we're living in a time where, books are being banned, and teaching history is illegal, particularly Black history. But more and more history is being, outlawed in schools. And so for a lot of people, the first time they're encountering things like the Tulsa race massacre is television. A lot of white people said they had never heard of it until they saw Watchmen on HBO. They had never heard of the Tulsa race riots. But at the same time, people from marginalized communities are like, we're tired of, always just kind of having to revisit our historical trauma on television and in film. In order to have a big budget story told about ourselves, it has to be a slave movie, or it has to be about the LGBTQIA struggles in historically. So there's that dichotomy at play. Like, how do you, when you're picking projects, first of all, how do you see that dichotomy? Do you agree that there is there is equally the responsibility or the duty, I guess, of entertainment to shed light on these, educational opportunities, but also without having our marginalized groups just kind of always being sort of mired in our own historical trauma? How do you go about when you're selecting projects? How does that work for you?
That's a good question. Earlier on, I said that it's definitely, I feel it's my responsibility to push the narrative, right? And the reality is not everybody in the film community, the film industry, the TV industry, entertainment industry is going to think the same way that I do. And I am all about reading the script, the story, understanding the pitch, who it's coming from. Do they how thoughtful are they? How organized are they? What are they trying to do there? And some of the earlier advice I gave was, who is the target audience? Why am I compelled to tell this story? What makes it unique? What makes it interesting? What makes it make me be a part of it? Is I want to be emotionally connected to it. I want to have that emotional resonance to it. What is it trying to say? But also, I look at film in a very different way than I started out before. When I read Birth of a Nation, I cried, and this is the types of movies that I want to make. Not just because it's another slave story. It was a story that not too many people knew about. Nobody that basically a lot of my colleagues didn't know who Nat Turner was. And so how I look at that now, we did have an educational curriculum and stuff like that planned for that, but how I see things now and how I want to push things now is, instead of it just being a one-off of content being consumed on the screen, right? Whether that's on your iPad or phone or television screen, is how can we make it much more immersive? How can we make it relatable? How can we eventize things so that there's so many different components to this particular comment in terms of storytelling? If you tell things in a unique way, people are gonna watch it. They're gonna find it interesting. They're gonna want to learn about it. We keep seeing the same stories, and not to diminish things that have happened in World War I or World War II. We keep seeing the same stories told by the same people about the wars, and I don't want to see that. I want to see things that I don't know about. And I know that it can be very traumatizing for some people to bring up massacres and, incidents of lynchings and other horrific things that have happened, for the 400 plus years of of craziness, for lack of a better word right now, because I could use other words and I'm not going to. So for me, is just the uniqueness, the creativity, the how can I envision certain things? Do I find it interesting? And I'm not necessarily, I'll be very candid for everybody here. I'm not necessarily worried about mainstream, because I'm not the one that is going to be running to watch a Marvel movie. I'm more into, this is really interesting. What did they do over here? I didn't know this story before. Look at how relationally they're doing these things. Oh, why did they make these artistic choices? Oh, that's really cool. So, I know it's kind of long-winded, my answer, but I just always look for something that's really, really different. But I want you to cry. I want you to feel angry. I want you to feel happy. I want you to feel sad when you're watching something that I've created. And also, I want you to have many feel-good moments within that project as well while you're watching it.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. I made Nikki Barnes co-host. Nikki was probably like Boosie, like, I'm just gonna sit here and listen. But the same way that I gave Christopher Boosie his flowers, I need to give Nikki Barnes hers, for bringing us all over, from Twitter Spaces to these pods. She is the queen of Spottable. Undoubtedly the queen of Spottable, and I just wanted to give her flowers. And I'd like to introduce Nikki Barnes, queen of Spottable, to Miss Brenda Gilbert, co-founder of BRON Studios. Because everybody should know that, really Nikki Barnes, and I have to do Nikki Barnes because I knew too many goddamn Nickies. So we got Nicci Freeman and we have Nikki Barnes. But I just wanted to give Nikki Barnes her flowers for really being the impetus of all of this. And thank you, Nikki Barnes.
Cheryl, but the way I almost hit that X on you and dipped out this room, girl, you know my word. I just came in to listen, but thank you.
Yeah, I figured that's why I had to do it real fucking quick, because I know you, Nikki Barnes. And I know people are at work, and so a lot of people are just listening who can normally be on the stage. But I also want to give a shout out to, I said it earlier, Rashida, hey girl, Miss K, Purple, Larich, all of the people, Susan, Joe, DT, there's so many people in here, Chrissy, Ange, who are part of the morning commute. Thank you all for coming in for our first pod. I didn't even know if anybody was going to show up. So thank you very much. And Jim, on to you and your question.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Before I say anything, there are 3 things I know to be true: death, taxes, and that Cheryl would be a kick-ass host. It is so cool to see the word host under your name. Been waiting a long time for it, and you are crushing it just like we all knew you would. To Brenda and Nicci, thank you guys so much for coming to talk to us. This has been thoroughly entertaining. I did not have a question, but I just wanted to give a thank you for one of the projects that you talked about. Brenda, I'm so sorry. Were you the one who was involved with Reggie, the documentary Reggie?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try to be mercifully brief with this. White dude, 57 years old, grew up in the rural South, and baseball was a big part of my life as a kid. And Reggie was a fascinating character for us because his talent was obvious and legendary. There was no question he was one of the greatest to ever do it. And I think white America really appreciated his talent. But I don't think white America knew what to do with Reggie as a person in terms of his personality, his pride, his, I'm here, I'm a black man doing it. I think it made a lot of white people uncomfortable. I think the media, which of course is heavily white, framed him. I'm using that word frame intentionally, by the way. I think they portrayed him in a very negative light as a like ungrateful, selfish, not team player guy. Meanwhile, he's playing for Billy Martin, and they're making Billy out to be this just scrappy, hustling, blue-collar guy who fought for everything he had. And it's bullshit. I mean, Billy Martin was a petty, insecure, paranoid guy. Reggie is still doing it. I've never seen any human being literally step up to the plate and deliver in the biggest situations when it mattered most. The bigger the situation was, the better he played. And he had to do it when he was surrounded by the New York media zoo. So for all of us who grew up watching Reggie, who loved his prowess, we just didn't know what to make of him. And the media sort of framed it. And I've always felt when you're making documentaries, if you do it right, you entertain, you educate, and you enlighten. And if you really do it right, you can even change perception. And I have to believe there are a lot of white people who watched that Reggie documentary and came away with it, understanding that there was so much more depth to this man, spirituality to this man, passion to this man. I came away, I already liked him. I came away loving him and seeing him in a way that I would not have without this film. So I really just wanted to say to you, I'm hoping it means something to you when you hear feedback from viewers. This was an important project because you took a very important person, not just in the history of American sports, but in American history. And you gave him a chance to show to the world, this is who I really am. And I just can't thank you enough. I thought it was a spectacular film. I enjoyed every second of it. And I'm so thankful that you made it.
I appreciate the compliments. Thank you so much. I mean, it was definitely more than just a group effort. Meeting Reggie was a huge honor. I grew up watching him as well and identified with him just because I am a person of color. So I think we should have had you on our marketing campaign, Jim, when we were going out there, because I still feel that it didn't get the recognition that it did, even though it was released on Amazon. Were great partners with us on that film. But I still think that it could have, reached a broader audience. So thank you. And, those are the stories that we have to keep telling and keep pushing, and people really understanding even the times that, Reggie was dealing with. It wasn't 2025, it was back in the day. And although we are dealing with, many different challenges these days, it was added more that the gatekeepers from media to sports to entertainment were not representative of who the athletes were at that time.
Right. And I didn't even mention that when he first broke into baseball, I mean, Jim Crow was awful for everybody, but that was another part of his story I wasn't quite as aware of. He put up with so much nonsense, in the minor leagues and these small towns. All I could think was, you're trying to make it into one of the most competitive fields in the world, right? Professional sports. And it's hard enough to do that job anyway. But when you are being treated the way he and so many other of the black players at that time were treated, it's like, imagine trying to do your job well when you have that on top of it. So he's an extraordinary man, just extraordinary.
Yeah, he said that he was treated one way on the field and a different way off the field. So I can't imagine the challenges that he had to deal with. So in all that I'm trying to do, I always put myself into somebody else's shoes going, okay, my worst day is not as bad as this person and that person. So therefore, I have to keep pushing.
And with that, why don't we, I pulled up a clip from BRON Studios, their YouTube. Hang on, I'm going to stream the clip to Reggie.
He created excitement on and off the field.
Please welcome number 44, Mr. October, Reginald Martinez Jackson.
Reggie Jackson, that one is long gone.
This is about my past.
I don't think it's checkered.
Now Reggie is out of the ballgame.
I wasn't liked because I'm the truth. And the truth is painful.
It's not cocky, it's real.
You weren't going to sugarcoat anything.
I'm happy for him to have an opportunity over here and spread his knowledge.
Reggie is a guy that can carry a ball club.
You were hitting balls all over the place. And I said, well, maybe this guy's for real. You were.
This is my story and how I see it. My history of the past 74 years
makes me think, have I done enough?
I was angry because I've constantly fought an uphill battle.
Strike three. Once I was on the field, I felt like I was in charge.
And it is a home run.
At this stage, I want to make change. We still need dignity. That is not too much to ask for.
Ooh, Brenda, the work that you do. I'm just going to shut up. Go ahead, Nikki.
Jen had made a comment in the chat about how, with the banning of books and stuff, how, this media is going to become so important to sending messages and telling our stories and everything. And honestly, I can't think of a better example than watching Kendrick's halftime show with the amount of people that didn't get it and the amount of people that saw every single one of those little itty bitty moments that meant something, that were a call to action, that were this and that, it was interesting, but I got to give him props because it was diabolical. Because how many other people can you get billionaires to pay for to do to like show a global protest, like broadcast a protest globally, get the billionaires to pay for it when you're talking shit about the billionaires? Like, it was diabolical. That man's supervillain era is awesome. I appreciate it.
With what we're talking about, Brendan, this can lead to what projects are you working on now? Because in the next 4 years, just like community is going to be so important, which is why I'm so happy for the Morning Commute family and Spottable, that our content will be more important than ever, right? Getting our stories out there, because I'm such a big believer in that it can change hearts and minds. So what projects do you have coming up in the near future? What are you working on? What kind of things are you executive producing? Manaz here under our moderator, and she was on the phone with her mom. We can also talk about her project that Brenda has just come on to executive produce. But what projects do you have coming up in the future, Brenda? What can we look forward to?
I think for me, first and foremost, is not necessarily the projects, but how can I be a value add to somebody's production, to help with mentorship, those types of things, because during the pandemic, during the time that I was quite ill, it gave me a lot of time to reflect, and I had to think about what was my purpose besides making content. And I really love helping people. I really love putting a light on people, and I love supporting people in any way that I can. That being said, I also have to be very realistic that I can't help 100 people at a time. So currently am mentoring individuals, have been attached as executive producers to some films as well. I'd mentioned David Steenhook earlier with Mediator Studios. We have a number of projects in development. David is an infinite visionary. He actually has written 60 different projects. So whether that's for film or TV, we have 2 in development right now. One is a real live sort of gangster story and about a police man who infiltrated the most notorious gangs possible. That will be a TV series. The other one is a full-length feature film on a man who basically was homeless against all odds, ended up playing Division One basketball, and a Black man put himself through law school while playing at the highest possible, I guess, part of his life, and putting himself through law school. And it's a true story. So when you talk about content, these are the types of stories I want to tell. Let's hear about the struggles, the trials, the tribulations, but I want to also shine a light on people that have triumphant moments and what have they done. And this man actually was in a car accident, that he was on his way to the NBA, and he decided not to go to the NBA. He was in a car accident that left him paralyzed, and he had like 0.00, I don't know, 1% chance that he was going to ever walk again, let alone play basketball again. Not only did he do that, he defied odds, went and played Division I basketball, not because he couldn't get into the NBA. It was because he wanted to make sure that he could put himself through law school and he could get paid well. And not only did he do that, he was hired by one of the biggest law firms in the world. And he is also an entrepreneur, has a coffee shop, has restaurants and things like that. So I'm just honored to be telling that story that David brought to me.
There is one other thing that I forgot to mention that I wanted to talk about. Brenda, when I met you on Clubhouse, I also met someone who had been convicted of a crime but was innocent and was talking about how you were such an advocate for them. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So we were on the set of Monster, starring Kelvin J. Harrison, Jeffrey Wright, Jennifer Hudson, and many others, ASAP Rocky, J.D. Washington. And that was directed by Anthony Mandler. And we were in New York at the time, filming in Harlem. And I'm the kind of person that gets to know everybody on set. So I talk to people, talking to people in the video village. What are you doing? I'm not the kind of person that just has my head down and headset on and just watching what's going on in front of me. So I came across a man by the name of Richard Rosario. And I did not know anything about this man. And we had hired him on, and by us, it wasn't me that made the actual hire, to consult on the accuracy of some prison scenes that we had. So we invited him to be on set, not necessarily for those prison scenes, but also for other times that we were shooting interiors or other exteriors and things like that. And what he proceeded to tell me about himself blew my mind. Now, remember, I'm a Canadian, so I don't necessarily understand everything that has gone on in the States growing up in Canada, with respect to the prison industrial system, complex system, et cetera, and all of the craziness with all of the different, judicial, governmental level, et cetera, educational level. And he had been incarcerated, get this, for a crime that he didn't commit. He spent 20 years behind bars. Not only that, his name is Richard Rosario. Not only that, He had 13 alibi witnesses to say that he had not killed a man in the state of New York because he was in Florida. Now, he was a poor Puerto Rican man at the time, early 20s, and couldn't afford legal counsel. And so some of the things that he had to go through, I had tears in my eyes. So I said to him, I said, listen, let's keep in touch. And, and I didn't think that it too much of it and whatever else, and let me know how I can support you. And we're still good friends to this day. We had a premiere of Monster at Sundance, and I made sure that we were able to fly him over, because who would get an opportunity to be part of the film and walk the red carpet and whatever else, and he had a blast. But yeah, he went through 20 years behind bars in the most awful prisons in the state of New York for crime he did not commit. Not only that, he said to, when they were letting him go and he had to sign off on things, he's like, well, I'm not signing off on anything. They let him go, didn't really apologize for it, and now he has to try to reintegrate with society, missing out on 20 years of his life. He had a 3.5-year-old daughter, and then a 2-year-old son that he said goodbye to, not knowing that he would never see them again for 20 years. He didn't see his family, he didn't see his friends. He missed out on so many major events, whether that was in the entertainment industry or otherwise, or technological advancements. But he told me that his intention, and I just met him, he was released in March of 2016. I'd met him in October of 2016. And when I had met him, he said, it's my intention to go back to prisons and to really help the people that I had met there, give them hope, give them encouragement and things like that, because I always knew I was innocent. And I was never, ever going to say that I was guilty. And he said that what I'm going to do is make sure that I have, put a case against the officers that essentially framed me. So what I found out, I was actually at his court case in 2023, the summer of 2023, whereby, was it 2023 or 2022? Anyways, it was a few years ago. And he had a civil case against 3 police officers that had framed him. So when they had witnesses to show that it was actually Richard Rosario at the scene of the murder that he was accused of, they had shown the witnesses or potential witnesses. 4 out of the 6 pictures were of Richard Rosario. Some of them they had taken voluntarily from his mom. So the odds of identifying Rich in the lineup were actually quite high, as opposed to showing 6 different people. So my goal is to also help individuals that have gone through the prison system, who have been wronged, who really, are dedicated to turning their lives around, but they also need some support, and they have, extreme PTSD as well. So Rich and I are friends. He calls me his sister. We've seen him many times. He knows all of my families. He sat down for dinner with them as well. But I think we just need more of us to do this. Earlier on, we were talking about community and how Spoutable can be a place where we congregate and talk to each other. And it doesn't have to necessarily be about our triumphs. It can be about the times that we've had challenges, and just having that ear is so important. That sense of, okay, this person's not going to judge me, but they're just going to listen and maybe, help and give us some advice.
I just want to say that, okay, a couple of things. First of all, that story is so important. Brenda, why don't we think about co-hosting one where he tells his story right here on Spoutable?
Yeah, agreed. I think so. That would be a great idea.
What do you think, Boozy? I think that it would be a great idea, as and I've said this in our meetings, right? Where I think that going forward, we need to be about joy and peace and hope, and telling these stories and keeping these stories alive as they try to bury them, right? So I think that, and I've heard him speak on Clubhouse, and it was really, really powerful to hear him, tell his story. The other thing that I want to say is somebody tell me another executive owner of a goddamn studio that's going to actually go to court with somebody. So if you've ever wondered why Brenda Gilbert and I are friends, the people who actually do the work in Hollywood, right? It's not all about, walking red carpets and going, and I did put in the billboard, me and Brenda, that was the Michelle Film Festival when she got her Trailblazer Award. It's not just about that. It's about doing the work. And we spend more times than I can count on Zooms, on calls, just doing the work. And I want you all to know one of the reasons that I brought Brenda over here is because to me, she is a beacon of hope. She is somebody who in Hollywood is telling our stories. Someone in Hollywood who will put her body by just going to court with somebody. Anybody else ever heard of that shit? These are the people that I want to bring to this platform so that you understand with all the craziness out there, that there are people like Brenda Gilbert and Nicci Freeman and all of my friends in Hollywood who are actually doing the work, and so that they can also be your beacon of hope for telling your stories. Nicci Freeman, you there?
I am. I'm here. I'm having an awe moment.
I think we're all having an awe moment. That Richard Rosario story is absolutely incredible. I'm going to really, I know we had an awe moment, but somebody in the chat actually asked a question. I want to get to that before we wrap it up. Sean asked, how long should a writer wait to hear back from a producer?
I mean, it all depends. I'm, as you probably all, and thank you, Cheryl. I mean, everybody here has done something great and done lots of things. And I just think that more of us just to do nice things. It only takes 5 minutes, 2 minutes. I'm not better than anybody else, right? But getting to the question is that, I'm one of these, and I started this off by saying this, is I'm one of these weird people that probably get back to people more quickly. The reality also is that, you have to be mindful about people's time. So you can touch base with them after a couple of weeks and say, hey, just wanting to know if you have any feedback. And even if they say no right away, and I don't like to waste people's time, if I'm not going to move forward with you, I will tell you. And if they ask me, and I always encourage people to ask the person that says no to you, what could make this better? How can I improve on this? Ask for feedback and be, transparent. The other thing is, don't take it personally. Think about, these could make it better, or maybe, you know what? I don't need to necessarily agree with this person and I can move on to the next person. So 2 weeks is a good time, I think, to really touch base with somebody. If they don't get back to you, check in a week later or a week after that. And if they don't get to you at all after that, and it's been a month's time, they clearly are not going to be moving forward with you or interested in the project. And it's also, I find it's very disrespectful when people don't get back to others.
Yeah, and people in Hollywood are known for that shit. Getting back to being like, oh, let's get together. So just so you know, when Brenda comes to town, Brenda gives me her itinerary. She's like, okay, so this is the day when do you have lunch? Who are we going to meet with? Let me schedule it around. She takes her friendships and her commitment to partner very, very seriously. Real quick, we got Mana, who has come up. So one of the projects that Brenda has signed on for is to be an executive producer on Mana's horror film. So Mana, because Brenda actually gave her notes in it. So when Brenda says she's going to read something, like she read Mana's entire script, sent her notes. How was that process for you, Mana?
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm sorry I'm so late. I'm so happy that I can still join. I'm also working on a different project at the same time. So thanks, Cheryl, and thank you, Brenda, for your wonderful notes. For me, what that's been like, it was really nice actually to get Brenda's notes because they were very thoughtful. So I could really, tell that she cared about the project. because I certainly, as a creative, have sort of been, what's the phrase, like been led on? I don't know. Anyway, like had the carrot held out in front of me where people just, they say the nice things and the platitudes and they're like, oh, you're great. But, they don't actually give you a no. And based on what I've seen from Brenda, is like, I understand that if she wouldn't actually like the project, she would tell me, and she would move on, and that does not waste like either of our time, and that happens so much in this space where in entertainment and where creatives work, and people are afraid to hurt feelings. And I very well know how much it hurts when after like half a year of them telling you, oh, this is great, actually it's been a couple years with some of these companies, like, we love you and it's great, and then just not come through on the things that they've promised. So it happens a lot, much more than you would want, and it's so important for the people that you're working with, and also with creatives, to just let them know, it's like, hey, this is not for me, and then give them that courtesy to be able to move on also, because I like knowing when someone else doesn't actually think it'll work or the project works for them, because that means that they're also not a right fit for me. So that's a long way of saying I'm really grateful for Brenda's thoughts on the project so far. Thanks for letting me talk.
I really didn't do so much for all of you. I really didn't do that much. I gave a little bit of feedback, so everybody's giving me more credit than I deserve.
Stop being so goddamn humble. You tell me that all the time. Like, we go back and forth. And also, I see Mark is in here. Mark, I don't know if you've heard, but we were talking about, what was this, Richard Rosario or Robert, Brenda?
Richard Rosario.
Right. And we were talking about having him. Mark is a lawyer, is a constitutional lawyer. So we are going to schedule a pod, Mark, and I'd love you to be a co-host, telling his story. Someone who was incarcerated for over 20 years. And Brenda ended up going to court with him and standing by him. So I'd love you to be a part of that. And I love the way that this is just sort of organically happening. And that you can't force community. So Nicci, any last words?
Well, I did want to point out something from the conversation that we were previously having. Just because I just want people to also realize that just because you've sent your script to a producer and they're not responsive to it, or they're telling you that they're not interested in this particular project, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the project either. They could, a lot of production companies have like an idea of the slate that they want to produce that year, and that might not be on their list of things that they want to produce. So also be very mindful of where you're sending it to. Don't send it to, if you're doing a drama, don't send it to somebody who's mostly known for comedies. They're not going to pick up a drama because they have a plan for their production company. And watch where those production companies are going. Some people move, you'll see them slowly move from comedy to drama, or to different kinds of, from TV to features. Just really take a look at what that production company that you're sending it to is doing at the moment, or has historically done, because it might not be your project. It might just be not what they're looking for.
That is a really, really good tip. Thank you all for coming to our very, very first Women of Color Unite Entertainment Pod. We are so happy that all of you joined us, stuck around. We look forward to doing this again. Nicci, why don't you give them a preview of who we got coming up?
I have Damien Portier from who was on The Flash. And for many people that don't know, he was the first Thanos in the Avengers movie. He's also a really good friend of mine. We have Kareem Grimes, who is on All American, and Christopher Emmanuel, who was on Black Lightning. So I've got a bunch of guys from the WB who are actors. Damien Portier is also a stuntman, stunt coordinator, etc. And they're all going to come on and talk about what they, starting off and current situations and jobs and what it's like to be an actor in Hollywood and all of their stories, because each one of them has really interesting, backstories or current stories. I have one that's stunts coming up as well, talking to the stuntmen and women that we're still scheduling. And
Yeah, so obviously we're going to start off with Black women, as B. Trusty likes to tease me about. But don't think that we have left the Black men out. No, we have not let you down. Y'all are next. Thank you again, Brenda Gilbert, my ride or die, my friend, my confidant. Everything that you are, everything that you have meant to me since we met, everything that you have meant to the entertainment industry. We're going to continue this, and we will be scheduling the pod to hear Richard's story. I think that is really, really important going forward. And our emphasis will obviously be on the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, people of color. Do not forget, the reason it is BIPOC was because our entire economic system was built on the backs of enslaved Africans, literally built on the land of the Indigenous and all other people of color. Benefit from that shit. I said what I said. Y'all know I had to do one Cheryl-ism. As Nikki likes to say, Cheryl Link. With that being said, thank you all so much for this. Bye.
The Women of Color Unite podcast is hosted by Cheryl L. Bedford and Nicci Freeman, produced by Nwabatanani, and edited by Lauren Bonet. The music is by Oh Yeah, featuring Nayuta. Subscribe to the Women of Color Unite podcast to never miss an episode. If you want to submit questions or responses to this episode, you can send them to podcast@wokeunite.com. Find the show notes and transcripts for this podcast on our website at wokeunite.org, where you can also learn more about Women of Color Unite and sign up to become a member for free and sign up for our monthly newsletter. Please consider making a tax-deductible donation. Donations are what enable us to create amazing programs like our #StartWith8 career development program. If you're on social media, you can follow the podcast at WOCU Podcast, and you can follow Women of Color Unite at wokeunite.org.
Please stay tuned and join us for the next episode of the Women of Color Unite podcast, because we telling it like it is.
We need rebels and troublemakers to stand out, marginalized with voices making us so proud for identity in the industry. We all shout, so many women empowered making their own route. Like
ageism, racism, sexism.
Uncovered, they get together to form a force to prove the one that ain't gotta have a child to be seen as a mother. I'm saying,
all power
to the women of color. Yeah. It's just a salute to Cheryl Bedford, leading activist in the community. She's bridging the gap and bringing all women together to fight for real inclusion amongst all the diversities. Keep going.